and welcome to the end of Strixhaven. My name's Hydo, and I've gone through every single legendary creature that there is in the set. All of the videos are in a couple of playlists that I've made. 27 of them. It's quite a lot, really. And, well, I've really enjoyed my time doing it. It's been fascinating to have a look at all of the different legendary creatures, but which are the top 5? Well, hopefully you've clicked this video because you want to know. And I have to admit, this is my personal top 5. It probably won't be yours, but I think I've got a couple of good reasons as to why. So, before we get into it, please, if you would, subscribe. It'd make me really, really happy. And I'll have a big grin on my face for the rest of the day. Without further ado, let's move on to number 5. And in at number 5, we have quite an interesting commander. It's Ruther, Mercurial Artist, who's one of the uncommon legendaries from this set. 3 mana for a 1/4. You can pay 2 to return Ruther, Mercurial Artist to its owner's hand, which is a fascinating ability by itself. Why would you want to return it to your hand? Well, you can copy target instant or sorcery spell you control. You may choose new targets for that copy. Now, copying instant and sorcery is a big theme of the sort of set, but this creature is very fascinating to me. There's a couple of very interesting things that we can do with it, and the most interesting for me is Eternal Dominion. If we copy the spell the first time we cast it, we get the epic ability, so we get casts of it over and over again. Eternal Dominion is a 10 mana sorcery. Search target opponent's library for an artifact, creature, enchantment, or land card. Put that card into play under your control. That player shuffles his or her library. Then epic. So for the rest of the game, you can't play spells. At the beginning of each of your upkeeps, copy this spell, except it for its epic ability. You may choose new targets for that copy. So if we use our commander to, return it back to our hand and then copy this, we get multiple copies of this every single upkeep for the rest of the game, which can absolutely win us the game. But the fun thing about this commander is we can copy things multiple times if we have something like Sneak Attack, which is a 4 mana enchantment where you can pay a red. You may put a creature card from your hand onto the battlefield. That creature gains haste. Sacrifice the creature at the beginning of the next end step. So, for a single red, we put our commander in, pay 2, return it to our hand, then pay another red, put her in. So we can potentially copy spells over and over again for just a single red. Also, this can lead to some interesting plays where you can have a blue-red massive Eldrazi deck and you can put enormous Eldrazi in for a single red and attack, annihilate your opponent's board. But there is a lot of sort of instant and sorcery synergy that we can go for. 1,000 Year Storm is a 6 mana enchantment. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, copy it for each other instant or sorcery spell you've cast before it this turn. You may choose new targets for those copies. So, Eternal Dominion and Big Eldrazi, they cost a lot of mana. We want to be pumping a lot of... what's the word? Rituals! There's one over here. Seething Song, which is a ritual, a 3 mana instant. You can add 5 red to your mana pool. So, with 1,000 Year Storm, if we get our storm counter up, those rituals are going to create a massive amount of mana, and then we can just play all of our big spells. We don't have to resort to sneak attacks. And we can keep casting our commander, putting her in different ways, and over and over and over again. But another interesting card in this deck, which you don't really see in blue-red decks all that much, is Ether Vial. A 1 mana artifact at the beginning of your upkeep, you may put a charge counter onto Ether Vial. Tap, you may put a creature card with converted mana cost equal to the number of charge counters onto Ether Vial from your hand to the battlefield. So, with our commander being 3 CMC, we just need to get this up to 3 counters and we can put her in for free every single turn at instant speed. Very, very similar to Sneak Attack, but 1 mana is pretty damn cool. And if the game goes long, we can get this up to 12 counters, put an Eldrazi in for free. Because we're going to be casting a lot of rituals and stuff like that, Dragonstone could be a direction you go into. 9 mana for a sorcery, search your library for a dragon permanent card and put it onto the battlefield. Then shuffle your library. And it has Storm, so you copy it for each spell you've cast this turn, or each spell that anybody has cast this turn. This is really cool if you're going for the big dragon sort of play, which means you could be putting Niv-Mizzets or things like that onto the battlefield with Dragonstorm, or just ramping into them. This commander's really, really cool, and considering she's an uncommon, I think she's been a bit overlooked. There's a lot of cool things you can do with her. Which takes me to number 4. And in at number 4, we're having a look at some mythics now. No, we're not. I'm lying. It's a rare. This card, when I first saw it, I thought was pretty terrible, to be quite honest with you. It's a green-black 1-mana 1/1 with Menace and Lifelink. The rest of the text, if a non-token creature an opponent controls would die, exile it instead. You may pay, if you do, you may pay 2. If you do, create a 1/1 black green pest token that has, when the creature dies, you gain 1 life. I'll be honest, I saw this and I just didn't think much of it. The other side of her, Lysette, I thought was a lot more interesting. But a 1-mana 1/1 sort of aggressive aggro deck in Golgari, I think that's really quite interesting. We have had that counter dude. I can't remember his name, the one that makes he keeps the counters whenever he goes to a different zone. But I just like this aspect. The 1-mana creature that you can play every single game on turn 1. I like that in a commander. Obviously, the other side is Lysette, Dean of the Root, which is a 4-mana 4/4 that reads, whenever you gain life, you may pay 1. If you do, put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control, and those creatures gain trample until end of turn. This can lead to some fascinating interactions. And out of all of the flip Deans, these two are my favorites. Both of them are really cool. You can build a really cool deck around either one of them or incorporate both of them. But as for Valentin, One with Nature is one of the best cards in this deck. 1 green for an enchant creature aura. Whenever an enchanted creature deals combat damage to a player, you may search your library for a basic land card, put that card onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library. So, turn 1 we play our commander. Turn 2, it's got Menace. We're going to get in with this, and we're going to get in multiple times. That's a ton of ramp for a single green mana. Absolutely fantastic. Then, Hunter's Prowess is a 5-mana sorcery. Until end of turn, target creature gets +3/+3 and gains trample. And, whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, draw that many cards. So 5 mana is pretty steep, but we're going to be swinging in. Our commander's going to be pumped up massively, hopefully, and we can get in, draw a ton of cards. To go along with this, Hatred is a wonderful, wonderful card, and not a great emotion, but 5 mana is it for an instant. As an additional cost to cast this, pay X life. Target creature gets +X+0 until end of turn, where X is the amount of life you paid. So, our commander has lifelink, so we could pump 20 life into this. Our commander's then a 21/1, swings in, kills an opponent with commander damage, and we get it all back thanks to lifelink. Really, really powerful. And if you use this on an opponent's creature, say they're swinging in with Llanowar Elves to their opponent, our opponent doesn't block, we pay 39 life, and suddenly they're dead out of nowhere. Absolutely fantastically powerful card. Really, really cool. Our commander isn't a human, so Gemrazor and the Mutate cards are a really nice direction to take this. Gemrazor is a 4-mana 4/4, but you can mutate it for 3, which means it becomes part of the creature it becomes as you put them on top of each other. Loads of rules flying around everywhere. It's got Reach and Trample, and whenever this creature mutates, destroy target artifact or enchantment an opponent controls. So on turn 3, we could be swinging in with a 4/4 commander and also blow up someone's Soul Ring or something else that they've deployed to the field. Very, very powerful. And Trample, it's always good. Then we have Bloodforged Battle Axe. 1 mana for an equipment. Quick creature gets +2/+0. Whenever a quick creature deals combat damage to a player, create a token that's a copy of Bloodforged Battle Axe. Equip for 2. Really, really powerful, and it's a great direction to take green-black in. Like, I love this sort of aggro idea of it. All the green-black decks that I've really built, including possibly the winner of this list, have always been very value-based, and this is just a great little direction to take Golgari in. Which brings us on to number 3, and we are going to be looking at some mythics now. Maiele, Crafty Companion. 3 mana for a 2/3 fox. Foxy. It reads, whenever an opponent attacks 1 or more planeswalkers you control, put a loyalty counter on each planeswalker you control. Whenever a permanent you control becomes the target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, you may draw a card. So that last ability really is quite exciting. It was on Leovold. Absolutely horrendously oppressive creature for his other ability, the stopping the draw. But card draw in red-white, always very nice. And Maiele leads us to a sort of Planeswalker build with his first ability. Nice defensive sort of thing. Which, Luca Wayward Bonder is on his other side. 6 mana for a Luca Planeswalker with 5 loyalty. You may discard a card. If you do, draw a card. If a creature card was discarded this way, draw 2 cards instead. Excellent card advantage in red-white. I do have to say, just before I go to the other abilities, when you're picking one of these flip Planeswalker creature things, I'd select one side to build around. Like, with Valentin, I'd pick Valentin. With Luca Wayward Bonder, I'd always pick Maiele. Maiele is the stronger half for me. 3 mana, can deploy it early, and if it dies, you can recast it for 5. But then if you wanted to cast Luca, it's 8 mana. Pretty steep. Luca's second ability, -2, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. It gains haste. Exile it at the beginning of next upkeep. And -7, you get an emblem with, whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, it deals damage equal to its power to any target. So, for this, I'm mainly going to be building around Maiele, the foxy little dude. And one of the best things I found about this commander is that draw ability. So, there's a little combo here. Ring of Evos Isle, 2 mana for an artifact equipment. You can pay 2 to give a quick creature hexproof until end of turn. Ooh, how can we use that? The rest of it, if a quick creature is blue, it gets a 1/1 counter. We're not playing blue. But if we have a Flag Bearer, Standard Bearer is a 2 mana 1/1. There's about 3 of these cards. If an opponent plays a spell or ability that would target a Flag Bearer in play, that player chooses at least 1 Flag Bearer as a target. So, what we can do, we play this. Every targeted removal spell, everything that could target a creature, has to target the Standard Bearer. But if it has the Ring of Evos Isle on it, we can give it hexproof and fizzle that spell. But we still draw the card from Maiele, which is a really, really, really cool interaction. Like, I absolutely love it. It's so, so cool. And it's one of the best things about this commander for me. Which brings me on to a couple of the Planeswalkers, the other side of Maiele. Elspeth Sun's Champion is a 6 mana 4 loyalty Planeswalker. Make a bunch of tokens, destroy a bunch of dudes, get an emblem that buffs everything together. I've forgot a Ajani there. I've messed up. 4 mana for a 4 loyalty Planeswalker. You can buff a creature, so it can buff our Maiele. Put a 1/1 counter and a loyalty counter on each other Planeswalker you control, and an emblem if a source would deal damage to you or a Planeswalker you control. Prevent all but one of that damage. So the main thing we're interested in here is the loyalty counters that you can distribute around. Here's Elspeth, slightly larger. So she's an absolutely wonderful Planeswalker. She doesn't interact that well with other Planeswalkers, but she defends us fantastically with tokens and blowing everything up. Finally, Gideon Jora, 5 mana for a 6 loyalty Planeswalker. The +2 is what we're looking at here, really. During target opponent's next turn, creatures that player controls attack Gideon Jora if able. So Maiele's ability will give a loyalty counter to every one of our Planeswalkers when Gideon's forcing everything to attack. Really powerful. -2, destroy target attack creature. Excellent on the following turn. And 0, it becomes a 6/6 that isn't all that interesting. Which brings us on to number 2. And number 2 is, I really like this card, Ambrosia, Dean of Shadow. 4 mana for a 4/4. Tap, put a 1/1 counter on another target creature. Then it deals 2 damage to that creature. Plus, and this is the really cool bit, whenever a creature you control with a 1/1 counter on it dies, draw a card. Excellent bit of card advantage in black-white, but it's such a weird ability, tapping to give a +1/+1 counter, but then deal 2 damage. It does so many things, all wrapped in one tap ability. It's just awesome. Shale, Dean of Radiance, is garbage. I think this card is terrible for Commander. It's a 2 mana 1/1, Flying Vigilance. Tap, put a 1/1 counter on each creature that entered the battlefield under your control this turn. It's not good for Commander. But We have a look at Ambrosia again. Look at the flashing lights. Woohoo! That tap ability is what we're going to be really looking at. So, with Thornbite Staff, 2 mana, the quick creature has tap and pay 2. This creature deals 1 damage to target creature or player. We can already tap and deal some damage. And whenever a creature is put into a graveyard from play, untap this creature. So, if we're facing up against a bunch of 1/1s on our opponent's side, we pay tap, put a 1/1 counter on it, but deal 2 damage, kills it. That'll untap our commander with Thornbite Staff. But what if our commander had Death Touch with Archetype of Finality, which is a 6 mana 2/3, creatures you control have Death Touch, creatures your opponents control lose Death Touch, and they can't gain it. So with our commander, we can, and Thornbite Staff, and some way of giving Death Touch, we can tap and kill everything. Just absolutely annihilate our opponent's board. Really, really good. Shale's garbage. I hate her. Basri's Lieutenant is another great... Oh no, Puppeteer Click. This is a new layout and I need to get used to it. Puppeteer Click is great with this commander. It's a 5 mana 3/2 flying. When it enters the battlefield, tag creature card in an opponent's graveyard. Put it onto the battlefield under your control. Gains haste at the beginning of your end step. Exile it. But it's the persist that we're really interested in. We can target this with our commander. Put a 1/1 counter on it. If it has a -1/1 counter on it, them two cancel each other out. And then it'll die because we're dealing 2 damage to it. And it'll come back with a -1/1 counter on it. So we get 2 triggers. So we can constantly recur the Puppeteer Click. Really, really cool. Really, really powerful. Basri's Lieutenant. 4 mana for a 3/4 with Vigilance and Protection from Multicolour. When it enters the battlefield, put a 1/1 counter on target creature you control. When it or another creature you control dies, if it had a 1/1 counter on it, create a 2/2 Knight creature token with Vigilance. So not only will we be drawing a ton of cards with our commander for all our +1/+1 counter creatures dying, but we'll get an entire board of creatures that are just, our opponents will be staring down a field. They'll think they've wiped the board. We draw a ton of cards. We get a ton of tokens left over. Finally, Trapdoor Tyrant. 5 mana for a 5/5 with Enrage. When it is dealt damage, exile target creature and opponent controls until it leaves the battlefield. Enrage, we're dealing damage to creatures, so why don't we trigger some Enrage, get a bunch of triggers off that. Which brings me on to number 1, and my favourite card from this set, and he's just so cool. It's Blex, Vexing Pest. A 3 mana 3/2. And I've always hated tribal decks. I despise them. I think they're just boring. But this one is really quite interesting. And you can take it in so many different ways. Other pests, bats, insects, snakes, and spiders you control get +1/+1. When it dies, you gain 4 life. So, it's an interesting tribal commander. But the main reason I like this card is because the front face, the Blex, and the back face, the searching for Blex, interact so well together in Commander. It's a nice little puzzle that you have to figure out, like, how can I use this to the best of my ability? So, in my opinion, you always cast the searching for Blex first, which, is a 4 mana sorcery. Look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may put a number of them into your hand and the rest into your graveyard. You lose 3 life for each card put into your hand this way. Excellent bit of card advantage. Yes, it can be quite painful, but it'll fill up our graveyard for things like Fiend Artisan, which is a 2 mana 1/1. It gets +1/+1 for each creature card in your graveyard. Really, really cool. Then, I did say, I'd always cast the Search for Blex, but if you do cast Blex and, he's on the field, this ability on Fiend Artisan and, things like Birthing Pod, where you can sacrifice something to go and fetch something, are great with Blex. It had put him into the graveyard. I'd never put him back into the command zone personally, except for one exception. But this ability, a black or a green, an X, tap, sacrifice another creature. Search your library for a creature card with converted magic at X or less. Put it onto the battlefield and shuffle. Using Blex, you gain 4 life from sacrificing, and then you can just go and find anything you want. It's really, really cool, and once Blex is in the graveyard, we want to play a lot of things like Phyrexian Reclamation, a 1 mana enchantment, pay 2 and pay 2 life, return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. So we get our Blex back, and then we can search for Blex again or cast him again, and we can just keep cycling through. And that interaction between the front and the back half is something that's new to Commander. It's not something you see often, and I love it. I just think it's so, so good. Of course, Ishkana Graph Widow is a 5-mana 3/5 with reach, and it's a spider. So Delirium, because of Search the Blex, you know, putting a bunch of cards into our graveyard, getting Delirium is quite easy. So we will get 3 other spiders, 1-2 spiders with reach, which, you know, leads to a cool little tribal deck. You know, Blex pumps them. It's just so good. It's so, so powerful. Lotus Cobra, excellent snake. You could go down the snake route. And this is what I like about this. We're not prescribed into one specific, oh, we have to run elves because it's an elf commander. This could go in so many different directions. Lotus Cobra, 2-mana 2/1, landfall. When a land enters the battlefield under control, add 1 mana of any color. Landfall and, you know, things like Life from the Loam, that could be a deck that you're doing. You're putting lands into the graveyard, you're getting them back, then triggering landfall. There's so many different things you can do with this commander. Finally, Tendrils of Agony. Well, could we play a Storm deck? Yes. Yes, we could. I'd said before about there's not many times when you put Blex back into the command zone. But if you manage to generate infinite mana, infinite color mana that is, you can search for Blex over and over and over again and just dump everything into your graveyard until you find a Tendrils of Agony, and just keep casting that search for Blex from the command zone, and finally, Tendrils of Agony your opponent's out. So Blex, this stupid, weird tribal commander, you could even play him as an infinite combo, possibly CEDH deck. There's just so many directions that you can take this card in, and I love it. And with that, that is my top 5 cards or commanders from this set. Strixhaven, really, really cool set. I've enjoyed making these videos. It's been really fun. I hope you've enjoyed watching them. We're going to be looking, or we have looked at the worst cards, and you know, they're my opinion, and that's that. So if you've enjoyed this, please subscribe. I'm going to be making plenty more content like this in the future, and I'll see you soon. Bye.